Solar Genesis. The Depthborn. Chapter 3. The Pull Beneath. By D. Wayne Harbison. Caspian woke well before dawn. The quiet of the Wavecrest compound surrounded him like a warm blanket, but it wasn't sleep that he craved. Padding across his room on bare feet, he approached the small moon pool set into the floor. The reinforced glass rim glowed with a soft halo of bioluminescence as sensors detected his presence. The circular aperture was wide enough for a diver to enter comfortably, with retractable rungs forming a narrow ladder into the depths. Transparent polymer domes allowed entry, while maintaining water pressure balance. Cas knelt at the edge, brushed a hand across the surface, and slipped silently into the water feet first, submerging in one smooth motion. The cold didn't sting. It welcomed him. The moment he submerged, the world above faded. The noise, the grief, the tension he hadn't realized he was carrying. All of it slipped away into the gentle embrace of the water. He could see clearly, even though the artificial sun bar hadn't yet begun its simulated rise. The water shimmered faintly with the glow of the ambient reef life, and somehow, he could trace the ridges of the coral in the distance, and pick out fish flitting between sea fans and anemones. Light and shadow moved in slow interplay as currents slid along his skin like threads of silk. Cas banked right, twisting his body as if turning in flight. The sensation was effortless. One arm reached forward, the other trailed behind, and his muscles reacted with smooth coordination. He felt the water peel away around him. And then something else. A hum in his skull. Not a sound, not exactly. A ripple. A pulse. Like the world was echoing back at him, telling him its shape. He could feel the coral wall to his left before he turned his head to see it. The marker buoy swayed gently in the currents ahead, and he banked around it as though on instinct. A flash of something at the edge of his vision. A shadow near the outer reef. His head snapped toward it, but there was nothing. Just a sudden push of water, and the faint shimmer of disturbed sediment. Stillness returned quickly. Cas stayed underwater for a long moment, listening with more than just his ears. Then slowly, he kicked back toward the moon pool. The swim home felt like gliding on thought alone. His breath was steady when he surfaced, and his body felt new. Recharged. He showered, toweled off, and dressed before heading to the small family galley, where the scent of freshly baked biscuits and salty ham greeted him with comforting familiarity. Bowls of sliced fruits, citrus, mango, and something grown only in Atlantea that resembled starfruit, were set out beside a tray of soft, golden biscuits and a bubbling bowl of peppered gravy. A platter of thick-cut ham and fresh eggs sizzled under a warming cover. His grandfather, Stefan, was already up, seated at the head of the table with a mug of dark coffee in one hand and a projection from his datapad floating in front of him. "Well, someone's up early," his grandfather said without looking up. "Couldn't sleep," Cas replied, grabbing a mug and pouring himself some hot chai. The spice stung pleasantly at his nose, grounding him in the moment. "Morning swim." Cas nodded. "Yeah. Always helped clear my head too," Stefan said. "Your great-uncle Geraint used to swear the ocean could talk if you listened long enough." Cas raised an eyebrow. "Uncle Geraint? The researcher?" Stefan chuckled. "The very one. Used to chase anomalies for months at a time. Swore he found deep-sea echoes that didn't belong. Called them ghost tides. Of course, nobody believed him. Still doesn't. He lives on Earth now. Quiet little place by the coast." Cas stirred his tea slowly, the steam rising in curls. "Did you ever hear them?" Stefan met his gaze over the rim of his cup. "Let's just say, I never doubted your uncle had good instincts." Cas didn't respond, but as he sat down to breakfast, the chill of the water still clinging to his skin and the quiet pulsing echo still ringing faintly in his mind, he started to wonder. What's happening to me? Cas's next class took place not in a traditional room, but on a floating platform near the reef's edge at the far end of the lagoon. The platform rocked gently underfoot as the class gathered around Mr. Haas, who stood in front of a raised, curved display console that projected blueprints of aquatic ecosystems and gene sequences in the air above it. "Today," Mr. Haas began, "we're looking at two species reintroduced to Earth in the last decade, the hawksbill turtle and the white-tipped reef shark. Through genetic engineering and careful ecological reintegration, both have survived and begun to thrive. And now, Atlantea will serve as a secondary habitat, a biological safeguard, should anything happen to the populations back home." Hollow recordings bloomed in the air, turtles gliding through shallows, their flipper strokes graceful and methodical, followed by sleek sharks patrolling coral channels with curious but measured motions. Cass watched, transfixed. There was something ancient and visceral about the footage. Despite all the layers of science and technology that had brought these creatures back, the wildness in them remained untouched. It stirred something in him. "You'll be observing and cataloguing their behavior on next week's field trip," Haas continued. "But for today, we'll run a simulation. Reef navigation and rescue procedures." He gestured toward a bin of advanced face masks, sleek, fitted gear with built-in sensors, vision assist, and miniature rebreathers integrated beneath the jawline. "These are fifth-generation Haas Summers masks," he added with a proud smile. "My great-grandfather helped pioneer the first version. Keeps your O2 regulated for up to 2 hours without surfacing, but today's drills will be shorter." Cass took one of the masks and fitted it over his face. It sealed with a soft hiss, and the HUD flickered to life across the inside of the visor. "Pair up," Haas said. Cass turned, and Tina was already stepping toward him. "Guess it's you and me." She offered a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was warm, until it wasn't. She turned and pulled her mask on with practiced grace, and Cass was left guessing where they stood again. The students entered the water in staggered teams. The current pulled gently, and the reef loomed below them in all its textured beauty. They followed a programmed course, weaving through coral structures and navigating narrow channels. The rescue simulation kicked in midway through. The HUD pinged a signal from a mock victim, a digital marker representing a disoriented diver. Cass surged ahead. He didn't think, he just moved. Every twist and pull of the current felt like second nature. He cut through the water like a predator, precise and fluid. His hand reached the beacon in half the time it took the others. He flagged it, then navigated the return path almost blind, using only his awareness of flow and motion. When he surfaced, Haas was already waiting with his arms crossed. "That," the instructor said, "was impressive." Cass looked over at Tina, who had only just emerged. She raised her brows and gave him a long, unreadable look. "You've been practicing," she said. Cass only nodded, still catching his breath, though he didn't feel winded. Not really. He felt alive. And somewhere in the back of his mind, that echo pulsed again. "What's happening to me?" As the students dried off and packed up their gear after the simulation, the energy of the morning began to shift. Groups broke into clusters, some peeling away to discuss the coming week's field trip, others heading back toward the Academy's central courtyard. Cass was still fiddling with the seal on his rebreather mask when Jessie approached. Her smile was easygoing and friendly. "Hey," she said. "You were amazing out there. You make that kind of swim look effortless." Cass blinked at the compliment. "Thanks. It just kind of clicked." Jessie nodded, then added, "Are you sitting with anyone on the boat ride to Westward Reef next week?" Not yet. Well, if you want a spot, we're grabbing a pod with a better viewing angle. Join us." "Yeah," Cass said, a bit surprised by how fast he agreed. "Sure. That sounds good." Tina's voice cut in before Jessie could reply. "You're assuming the seats will still be available by then." Cass turned. Tina was drying off her hair with a towel, her tone casual, but her eyes sharp. Jessie gave a polite shrug and walked off to rejoin her group. Cass watched Tina for a moment. Something was different in her posture, the tightness around her smile. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine," she said quickly, then hesitated. "You're getting popular lately." Cass frowned. "It's just a seat." "Sure it is," she replied with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. They walked back in silence, the hum of the sea still clinging to Cass's senses. But something had shifted. He glanced once more at Tina, then out toward the reef in the distance. He had options. That realization settled in like the warmth of the sun through water. Quiet, but undeniable. That afternoon, the air was heavy with the smell of salt and sweat as Cass stepped onto the training platforms for junior varsity tideball practice. The water beyond the netted perimeter sparkled beneath the artificial sunlight, but Cass's thoughts were caught in the current of something deeper. Coach Grainer barked commands as players dropped into the tide lanes, slipping into their assigned formations. Cass was in his usual role as an ebb runner, the flexible position that required strong instincts and explosive speed. From the moment the game began, Cass felt something unusual. He wasn't just playing, he was flowing. The rhythm of the game, the tension in the water, the wake of another player slicing nearby, it all reached him with startling clarity. He darted to intercept a pass not because he saw it, but because he felt the pull before it left the thrower's hand. He could sense where players were, even when visibility dropped. He spun, kicked off the inner wall, and launched himself through a passing lane, slapping the ball with a glancing palm to redirect it to Will. The ball skipped off the water surface in a flawless arc, one of Tim's signature passing tricks. Cheers erupted from the team. Cas barely heard them. His body burned with the rush of movement and something else, an awareness that bordered on precognition. A larger shadow slipped into the pool at the far end. Senior player Rafe Malkan, sent down to help mentor the junior squad, caught the ball midstream, then launched an aggressive drive that slammed Cas underwater. Cas surfaced hard, gasping but uninjured. "Not bad for a junior," Rafe said, eyeing him. "You're moving like you've been training with the elite squads." Cas opened his mouth to reply, but hesitated. Tim cut in before he could answer. "He's just good. You got a problem with that?" Rafe shrugged, then swam off. Cas glanced at Tim, grateful. After practice, as the others drifted toward the locker lounge, Tim waved him over. "You okay?" "Yeah. Just tired," Cas lied. "I think I'll head home early." Tim nodded without pressing further. That evening, Cas stood barefoot at the edge of the reef near Wavecrest, watching the gold-pink hues of simulated sunset filter through the ocean's surface above. Without a word, he stepped into the water and dove. The world below was muted and warm. He kicked deeper, past the coral fringe, and into the darker zones. There, beyond the edge of the shallow reef, he hovered in silence. The sound came again, distant, like whale song, but wrong. Mechanical. Rhythmic. An artificial hum layered beneath the pulse of water. Cas turned toward it, the sound echoing faintly in his skull. He swam forward. The sensation of time vanished. He didn't know how long he drifted, following the pulse. 5 minutes. 10. 20. He should have needed air by now, should have been gasping, but he wasn't. His lungs were still. Finally, something inside him said enough. He turned back. He breached the surface as the last rays of the sunbar faded. A deep breath filled his lungs, but it wasn't desperate. It was deliberate. Cas floated there for a while, staring up at the simulated stars. Something inside him was changing, and it wasn't slowing down. Later that evening, as Cas was drying off in his room, a quiet ping issued from his wrist comm. He glanced at it, expecting a schedule reminder. Unusual biometric pattern detected. Please report for secondary screening. His stomach tightened. He stared at the message for several seconds. Something cold coiled at the base of his spine. Not fear, exactly, but the sense of being watched, tracked. A test he didn't remember agreeing to. Then, with calm fingers, he pressed a sequence on his wrist comm and deleted the alert. He didn't tell Tim. He didn't tell anyone. He showered in silence, letting the water drum against his skin longer than necessary. The warmth helped ground him, but his thoughts moved like tangled seaweed, slow, restless, impossible to straighten. After dressing in a soft pullover and dark slacks, he headed toward the main dining room, his steps echoing softly on the polished floors of Wavecrest. The Thoinn family dining room was spacious and warm, lined with textured wood paneling and curved marine stone tiles inset with silver accents that shimmered under recessed lighting. Translucent panels on the ceiling mimicked the slow motion of waves above, casting refracted patterns across the room as though it were submerged. A long table of carved driftwood stretched nearly the length of the chamber, surrounded by high-backed chairs upholstered in deep blue and teal. As he entered, the scent of savory spices, roasted vegetables, and warm bread wafted toward him. He was surprised to see not just his grandfather, but his eldest brother Cale seated near the head of the table, a half-full glass of dark wine in front of him. "Hey, little fish," Cale greeted with a smirk. "Cale, I didn't know you were in town. I had business on the cylinder. Thought I'd stop by and check on the family." Stefan looked up from carving thick slices of grilled sea bass. "Grab a plate, Cas. We're just getting started." The table was a feast. Bowls of citrus-glazed root vegetables sat beside a golden biscuit tray and a bowl of sweet and sour fish sauce. There were heaping platters of sautéed greens, sliced tropical fruits, and smoked ham that glistened under a warming cover. It all smelled like home, but stronger somehow, like memory rendered more vivid. Cas filled his plate, taking a little of everything, and settled across from Cale. The conversation started light. Work gossip from Cale's trips to Earth, Stefan's dry stories about compound politics. But slowly, inevitably, the topic shifted. "So," Cale said between bites, "I hear you've been spending a lot of time in the water." Stefan nodded. "Got a call from Mr. Hass this afternoon. Said you broke the city swim record and aced the rescue drill like a pro." Cas poked at his ham with his fork. "It just helps. Being in the water. It's the only place I don't feel heavy. Kale's tone softened. We all find ways to grieve. For me, it was working non-stop. For Ran, it's building Martian oceans. Just don't lose yourself in it. You still have to be you. I'm trying, Cass said, quieter than before. Kale tilted his head. And what about that girl from the funeral? Tina? Hot one moment, cold the next. Cass gave a frustrated sigh. Exactly. I never know where I stand. Then Jessie started being nice, and now I don't know what to think. Welcome to teenage romance, Kale said, lifting his glass in mock salute. Stefan chuckled and leaned forward. Confused already, eh? If you're waiting for a girl to make up her mind, you'll be collecting your pension first. Cass grinned despite himself. Stefan continued, voice lowering with intent. If you like her, ask her out. If she says yes, great. If not, then keep her out of your inner circle. Don't let her linger just to treat you like her fallback option. He tapped a finger on the table. You, Caspian Thoinn, are not second tier. You're someone's first choice, or you're no choice at all. Cass flushed slightly. Thanks, grandfather. You remember that, Stefan said, then gave him a wink. And don't let anyone ever settle for a Thoinn. Least of all you. The moment lingered for a heartbeat longer before Kale gently cleared his throat. There's something else. About the high Calypso. I wanted you to hear it from me. Cass stilled. The warmth in the room seemed to fade just a little. The investigation found that the ship's AI suffered a cascading fault, Kale said. It triggered a catastrophic feedback loop in the fusion drive. They're saying maintenance records were falsified. The spaceline cut corners. Stefan's expression turned dark, jaw tightening. Kale added, there's going to be a settlement. A big one. But I know that won't fix it. Cass stared at his plate for a long moment. It won't bring them back. No, Kale said. But someone will be held accountable. They ate the rest of dinner quietly, the air thick with unsaid thoughts. The food, firelight, and the murmur of waves beyond the glass should have felt comforting. But Cass could still feel the weight of that deleted message pressing against the back of his mind. Something was happening. And now, others might be starting to notice.